The house used to be full of life. There was always music playing, sometimes soft gospel songs in the morning, sometimes lively tunes when Mama was cooking. Her voice filled every corner, either singing, laughing, or calling out, "Kalechi, come taste this soup." But now, all of that was gone. 17-year-old Kalechi stood in the middle of the living room, staring at nothing in particular. The walls were the same. The sofa still had the flower-patterned pillows Mama loved. Her favorite slippers were still by the kitchen door. But everything felt different. Quiet, heavy, empty. Mama had passed away just 2 weeks ago. Cancer. A long and painful illness that slowly took her strength, her smile, and then her breath. Kalechi had watched it all happen. The hospital visits, the medicines, the way Mama tried to stay strong, even when she could barely sit up. She always said, "Don't worry, my child. God is still good." Even on the worst days, she would hold Kalechi's hand and smile. Now, that hand was gone. That voice, so full of comfort and joy, was silent. Kalechi felt like someone had turned down the volume on life itself. The house, once warm and loud, felt like a shadow of what it used to be. Baba hardly spoke anymore. He sat quietly, mostly staring at the television, even when it wasn't on. Kalechi's older brother, Chuka, spent most of his time outside or locked in his room with headphones on. They were all under the same roof, but it felt like each of them was living on a separate island. Sometimes, Kalechi wanted to scream just to break the silence. Other times, she wanted to curl up in Mama's bed and sleep for a year. The grief was sharp, like cold wind in the chest, and at other times, it was just this dull ache that never left. Food didn't taste right. School didn't matter. The world kept going, but inside, everything had stopped. Kalechi missed the smell of pepper soup in the air. She missed Mama's soft humming in the evening. She missed the way her mother would touch her forehead and say, "You'll be all right, my baby." But now, in this house full of silence, Kalechi wasn't sure anything would ever be all right again. The days after the funeral passed like a blur. One morning felt just like the next, slow, quiet, and heavy. The house was still too quiet, but life outside kept moving. People stopped visiting. The neighbors no longer brought food. It was just Kalechi, Baba, and Chuka again, each lost in their own pain. One Saturday afternoon, Kalechi decided to clean. Not because she wanted to, but because she didn't know what else to do. Dust had started to gather on the windowsills, and Mama's room smelled a little like closed curtains and forgotten time. Kalechi moved slowly, folding clothes that still smelled like her mother's perfume, wiping shelves with trembling hands. Then she saw it. A small wooden drawer tucked at the bottom of Mama's old dressing table. It had always been there, but somehow it had blended into the background, just another part of the furniture. Something about the way it sat slightly open made Kalechi stop. She knelt down and gently pulled it open. Inside were small things, things that didn't seem important to anyone else, but to Kalechi, they felt like treasures. A faded photo of Mama holding her as a baby. A small beaded bracelet Kalechi had made in primary school. A hairpin Mama used to wear every Sunday. A broken keychain in the shape of a butterfly. And then the envelope. It was cream-colored and slightly yellow at the edges. On the front, written in her mother's neat handwriting, were the words, "For Kalechi. Open when you're ready." Kalechi's breath caught. Her hands began to shake. She stared at the envelope as if it might disappear. Her heart beat faster, and for a long moment, she didn't move. Was it really from Mama? How long had it been there? Why had she never seen it before? Tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to rip it open right there, but something stopped her. This wasn't something to read while standing in the middle of the room with dust on her fingers and the vacuum still humming in the background. She picked up the envelope like it was made of glass and walked slowly to her mother's bed. The room was still filled with Mama's presence. Her scarf hung on the bedpost. Her Bible sat on the side table, marked with a ribbon. Kelechi sat on the edge of the bed, holding the letter close to her chest. She waited. She wasn't sure what she was waiting for. Maybe the strength, maybe a sign. But when she finally peeled the envelope open, her whole world began to change. She held the letter with both hands, her fingers trembling. She took a deep breath, unfolded the paper, and began to read. My dearest Kelechi, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer there with you in person. Oh, how I wish I could hold your face in my hands one more time and call you my baby girl. Kelechi's lips parted slightly. Just hearing her mother's words, even on paper, felt like hearing her voice again. A voice filled with warmth, soft and steady. I have watched you grow from a tiny baby who couldn't stop crying into a strong, smart, and kind young woman. I wish I could see all the wonderful things I know you will become. But life has its own path. And sometimes we must walk it with courage, even when it hurts. As she read, her mind filled with images. Mama brushing her hair before school, singing softly. Mama sitting by her hospital bed, weak but smiling. Mama squeezing her hand gently and whispering, everything will be okay. I know this world can feel confusing, especially now. There will be days when you feel lost. Days when your heart will be heavy. But please remember this. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it flow. Let it teach you. A tear rolled down Kelechi's cheek. Love people deeply, Kelechi. Even when they hurt you, try to forgive. Don't carry bitterness. It's too heavy. Let go. You'll feel lighter. Don't be afraid to fail. Every mistake is a lesson. And when you feel like you can't go on, pray. Faith is not about never feeling scared. It's about trusting God, even in the dark. Flashbacks played in Kelechi's heart like a quiet movie. Laughing with Mama in the kitchen while baking meat pies. Running into her arms after a bad dream. Sitting beside her hospital bed, trying to smile, pretending it didn't hurt. Tell your father you love him. He may not know how to show it, but he loves you more than he can say. Be patient with your brother. He's hurting too. Help each other heal. She wiped her eyes and read the final lines slowly, her voice shaking. I may not be there to hold your hand, but I will always be in your heart. Live fully, love deeply, and never forget who you are. I am proud of you, always, with all my love. Mama. The letter dropped gently onto her lap. She sat there, quiet, the weight of her mother's words wrapping around her like a warm blanket. For the first time in weeks, the silence in the house didn't feel empty. It felt like her mother was still there. The room was still. Kelechi sat frozen on the bed, the letter in her lap, her hands covering her face. And then, just like that, it all poured out. The tears came fast, harder than they ever had. Sobs shook her small shoulders. It was like all the pain, all the confusion, all the words she'd never said, were crashing out of her all at once. Mama, she whispered, barely able to speak through the tears. "I miss you so much." The grief felt like a storm inside her chest, loud, messy, uncontrollable. She curled up on the bed, clutching the letter to her heart like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. For the first time since the funeral, Kelechi didn't try to be strong. She didn't hide. She let herself feel every part of the loss, every bit of the love. The pain, the longing, the memories, they all came rushing in like waves. And then, something gentle happened. In the middle of the crying, in the quiet that followed, she felt it. Not a voice, not a shadow, just warmth. A calmness that filled the room. The kind of feeling she used to get when her mother tucked her in at night or held her after a hard day. She sat up slowly, wiping her eyes. She looked around. The room was still empty, but somehow she didn't feel alone. She looked down at the letter again and held it tightly to her chest. It didn't take away the pain, but it reminded her that the love hadn't gone anywhere. It was still here, still hers. That night, after brushing her teeth and putting on her pajamas, Kelechi reached for her journal, the one Mama gave her on her last birthday. She hadn't written in it since the diagnosis. She opened to a blank page. The pen hovered for a moment before she began to write. "Dear Mama, I got your letter today. I don't know how to explain how I feel. It hurts so much, but reading your words felt like you were here with me. I cried a lot, but I think that's okay. I want you to know I heard everything you said. I'll try to forgive. I'll try to be kind. I'll try to live the way you always hoped I would. I love you so much. I miss you every single day. Your daughter, Kelechi." She closed the journal softly, like closing a door she was finally ready to walk through. It wasn't the end of her grief, but it was the beginning of something else. Something softer, something healing. Morning light spilled through the curtains, painting soft lines across Kelechi's wall. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Something felt different. The sadness was still there, yes, but it wasn't as heavy as before. It didn't sit on her chest like a stone. It was more like a quiet ache in her heart, one she was learning to carry. She walked to the kitchen and saw her father standing by the sink, quietly drinking tea. For weeks, they had passed each other like strangers, speaking only when necessary. But today, Kelechi paused. "Good morning," she said softly. He looked up, surprised. Then slowly he nodded. "Good morning, Kelechi." It wasn't much, but it was something. That afternoon, she picked up her sketch pad from under the bed, where it had been hidden since Mama got sick. Drawing used to be her favorite thing in the world. Mama always said she had magic in her hands. At first, her pencil felt stiff, unsure. But as the lines took shape, flowers, clouds, her mother's face, something in her heart opened. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. A few days later, she found the courage to message her best friend, Amaka, whom she hadn't spoken to since before the funeral. "Hey, I'm sorry I pushed you away. I just didn't know how to talk about it." Amaka replied almost immediately. "I'm here. I've been here. And I still love you." Kelechi wiped her eyes and smiled again. It felt good. Strange, but good. She started keeping a small notebook in her bag, a space where she wrote little bits of advice from her mother's letter. Love deeply. Be kind, even when it's hard. Don't be afraid to start again. At school, she joined the art club again. At first, the noise and chatter overwhelmed her. But then, she saw a younger girl struggling with a drawing and offered to help. They laughed together. It felt like breathing again. Bit by bit, the days grew lighter. She still missed Mama with every part of her soul. But now, the grief was filled with something else too: purpose. She helped her little brother with homework. She made jollof rice for the first time by herself. She even told her dad about her art club and showed him one of her drawings. He stared at it for a long time before saying, "Your mother would be so proud." And Kalechi believed him. The world hadn't gone back to what it was, but slowly it was finding color again. She was beginning to live not just with pain, but with hope. She was starting to carry her mother's love into every step, one step at a time. Years passed. Kalechi was older now, taller, wiser, her voice calmer but still gentle. Her hair was tied back neatly, and in her hands was something small, worn, and deeply precious. A letter. The letter. Its edges were soft and creased from being folded and unfolded 100 times. The ink had faded in places, but every word still lived inside her heart like it was written yesterday. She stood at a small stage in her old school's hall. The chairs were full of students, some whispering quietly, some waiting curiously. A microphone stood in front of her, but she didn't need it. Her voice was steady, and her words came from a place that needed no help to be heard. "I want to share something with you," she said, holding up the letter carefully. "It was written by my mother a little while before she passed." A hush fell over the room. As she read pieces of it aloud, something magical happened. The room felt smaller, warmer. The students listened, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. And in each word, Kalechi's voice carried the love, the strength, and the wisdom her mother had left behind. She smiled gently, blinking back tears. Not the heavy kind. This time, they were the kind that came from gratitude. "When I was younger," she said, "I thought losing her meant I had to walk alone. But this letter, her words, they became my map. She may be gone, but through her words, she still raises me every day." The crowd was quiet. And then, soft applause. A few teary eyes. A teacher placing a hand to her heart. Somewhere in the back, a younger girl holding her own notebook just a little tighter. Later, Kalechi would read the letter again to her little brother before his first big exam. One day, she might read it to her own child, during a hard moment when they, too, needed to feel held. As the music rises softly in the background, we see the letter one last time. Its gentle script, the name at the top, the words that changed everything. Kalechi's voice echoes in the quiet. "Live fully, love deeply, and never forget who you are." The screen fades to black. The image of the letter remains. Still guiding, still loving, still here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.